horse, H, mud, skag. These simple words represent an indiscriminate killer, heroin. Folks, heroin is not in someone else's neighborhood. It's not someone else's problem. Whether it's Falston, Bel Air, Joppa, or Darlington, it's right next door. In fact, it could be in your house. But tonight, we're going to stand up and fight against the enemy and the individuals who bring this to our doorsteps. Welcome to Hope for Harford, a combined effort with Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor, County Executive Gary Glassman, School Superintendent Barbara Canavan, and our partners in treatment and medical community like Upper Chesapeake, Father Mark Ashton, Maryland Recovery, the Health Department, and of course our volunteer fire companies, along with many others, who understand this issue is so important that it takes the entire community to prevent terrorism in Harford. We come to you from Darlington Hall on the campus of Harford Community College. I'm Eric Roby, Director of Legislative and Community Affairs for Sheriff Jeff Gaylor. I'm here this evening with a sold-out, packed audience to talk about one important topic, heroin, and how it affects our communities. I'm here today with an average student here at Harford Community College. If you see her around campus, she's in the nursing program, I understand. Christina, you're in recovery. How long have you been in recovery?
I have been in recovery a little bit over 3 years now.
Life a little different for you than it was 3 years ago?
Absolutely, it's tremendously different. My life does not mirror anything that it looked like when I was in active addiction.
Thank you, Christina. We'll hear from Christina later on in the program in the 8 o'clock hour. Tonight's about fighting the enemy that's destroyed countless families here in Harford County. Countless families. This room is packed with people who care about this issue, and we need to take this message from the campus of Harford Community College to all the streets here in Harford County. This evening, we have a special video that we want to start out with, and it's a Harford County family. They're members of our Hope for Harford group, and I'm going to turn it over to Amber Schroed to introduce the video.
Thank you, Eric. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I'm the Director of Community Services for Harford County. I'm Amber Schroed, Director of Community Services for Harford County. Community Services is the lead prevention agency in the county. It is my honor and pleasure to be here with the Gallon family who are helping us fight this battle. Their son was lost to this tragedy in January, and they are working very hard to make sure that this does not happen to any of our other families. And this is their story.
We're a middle-class family that lives on a farm, that works hard, gives back to the community. We're active in the church. We're, God-fearing family. Unfortunately, that didn't matter. Where addiction is concerned, it didn't matter. And Nolan and I have been in the fire service for over 30 years. All of our kids were raised in the fire service. I mean, all of our kids wandered around in the fire service as babies, as children. So they saw everything. From the time that Nolan III was little, I mean, he loved fire engines. He loved, all of that. And ironically for him to finally die, where he loved to hang out the most was just crazy. The needle we found that night was a 1cc syringe. So less than 1cc killed our son of something. Less than 1cc. I mean, when you think about that, it's less than a teaspoon. Killed our son.
And they just think that they can do it one time and then, life goes back to normal. They don't realize that one time is what changes everything for them. And it doesn't, it doesn't just happen one time. It happens one time and then again and again and again, and they become in denial themselves that they even have a problem.
Statistics have shown that 90% of the people who use it the first time become addicted. And the other 10%, if they use it a second time, do. It's not like taking a drink. It's not like smoking a cigarette. It's not even like trying marijuana. It's not something you can take one time and walk away. You take heroin and you're pretty much addicted. I don't think that I even knew
up until the day that my brother died from a heroin overdose, that the severity of the drug. I didn't understand. I thought, you know, it was going on in my own house, and I didn't understand that this could kill him. I was very oblivious to the effects of it.
But the thing of it is addiction doesn't just affect the addict. It's sort of like when you throw a pebble in a lake or in a pond. That ripple effect comes all the way into the shore. Well, the addiction affects the entire family. And when he was using, he wasn't the person that, you know, that we loved the most, because the drug controlled him. And when he wasn't using, he was miserable.
And now we're living a nightmare caused innocently from our son being in an accident, getting on pain pills, and then escalating from there.
Thank you all for being here this evening. As your county executive, this hits home too. I talked about Nolan at the State of the County address in January, and I mentioned our battle that we have ongoing at December when I got inaugurated right down here. But tonight is about hope, and I'm a man of strong faith, so I believe, and a student of Harford County history, and I know how this county can bind together and work together, whether with the Board of Education, the Sheriff, our Office of Drug Control Policy, the courthouse. Listen, we have a history of stepping up and working together. And I know that I meet so many families that suffered the devastation. And I also know that we're up against a Goliath. And you know, I guess it's for being a sheep farmer, I love the story of David and Goliath. David always got held back and had to protect the flock, and his brothers went to fight the great armies of the Philistines. And then they set him down to slay Goliath. Heroin's our Goliath. Some refer to it as our dragon. David reached over before he went to see the big giant and picked up 5 smooth stones, put them in his pouch. And we have 5 approaches. We have to have a multifaceted approach to this battle. And those 5 smooth stones: education, treatment, enforcement, and the other 2 intangibles, I like to say, are persistence and faith, that we can defeat this, save the current generation at risk, and prevent the next generation from ever having to suffer or try heroin, to have those tools on that first try to say no or know how to deal with it. So tonight we're going to hear from various experts, our partners. We are also going to hear some personal stories and testimony. But I am here in full faith, and I am encouraged. We should not despair. We can defeat this as a community. And we can slay this Goliath, this dragon of heroin. So thank you for being part of this. Thank you for stepping up. I thank all those that are suffering, that are brave enough to stand up and share their testimony so that we know what we're dealing with. So thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, County Executive. Thank you for all the work that your administration's done in partnership with the school system, with the Sheriff's Office, and with all the other partners here in Harford County. We are fighting an enemy, and the enemy is heroin. Once every 48 hours in Harford County, we have an overdose that occurs. Once every 48 hours. Just today, from when I left the office at 3:30 to the time I got here at 5, there were 2 reported overdoses. It's a problem. It's a challenge. And we've assembled a panel of experts here this evening. I want to introduce our panel, starting down to the left with our, from the Health Department, our Director of Behavioral Health, Ms. Beth Jones. Our Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Barbara Camden. Our Sheriff of Harford County, Mr. Jeff Gaylor. Our Forest County Executive, Barry Glassman. Joe Ryan, Manager of the Office of Drug Control Policy. Joe paid a few fans to come here tonight. Captain Lee Dunbar, Commander of our Drug Task Force. And our State's Attorney, Mr. Joe Castro. Judge Angela Eves will also be joining us this evening. She's actually running late from a jury trial, but we do expect her within the half an hour as well. I want to start with our panel. I'm going to start with the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Canavan. I know that education is such a key component to fighting this war on heroin. The school system has already done a lot. We've already put a lot of measures in place. Can you give us an idea of some things that you're working on currently and what you have going forward in the future to deal with the heroin problem and educate our young people about the dangers of this drug?
First thing I'd like to do is thank everybody for being here tonight. As Barry mentioned, this is an evening of hope and looking towards the future. And if this room is not an indication of how much people care, I don't know what is. Children are our most prized possession. And they're sent to us every day, pre-K through 12, and we try very, very hard to take care of them the way their own parents would. And the biggest fear that we have is that they can be hurt. Heroin does not know a zip code. It does not care how much your house costs or your car. It does not care what your social status is. It is a predator, and it lurks everywhere. And anyone that forgets that is really and truly in a state of denial. We have worked for years to fight the war against drugs. Even with our small pre-K kids who take naps and play and sing and bounce around, we talk with them about good decision making, making sure that they understand that you don't touch a medicine bottle and you don't touch cigarettes or matches. These aren't good for you because you want to grow up to be a good person and a fine person and be able to play and run. And we do the same thing all the way through 12th grade. We work very, very diligently, and it is a conduit. It is a great partnership with the health department, with the sheriff's office, with law enforcement, with the county government, with any agency that we possibly can to create intimate relationships between our children and the people that they can look up to and admire and go to help. We have significant wraparound services, rehabilitation services that we've secured with the health department, and wonderful, wonderful people that work very diligently every day to make sure that we're not just tweaking, but that we're providing optimal opportunities for children to be safe. I look forward to the question and answer period and look forward to your comments, because this evening I have many members of my leadership team here with me, and we will be taking this back to our school-based administrators and other leadership teams to really look at what we're doing and how we can make that better. So I do thank you for these few moments, and I will extend an invitation to anybody in this room that would like to meet with me, members of my leadership team, supervisors for health education, et al. If you feel like you have something, an idea, something to offer, even a story that will move us to think differently or in a better way, I welcome that. And don't hesitate to give us a call. So thank you for that time.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. 9 months ago, Harford County elected a new sheriff. And as the saying goes, there's a new sheriff in town. And there's a new way of dealing with the heroin problem. Sheriff Gaylor, within 3 months of taking office, formed the Hope Work Group, and and has assembled a group of about 18 members that have been actively, for the last 6 months, looking at ways we can address this heroin issue better. Sheriff, I know that you put this work group together. We've got members on that group from the business community, from the faith community, from all aspects of Harford County represented on the Hope Group. Can you tell us a little bit about what your goals and objectives for the Hope Group is? And then I know you have a short presentation to kind of give an idea of what the real numbers are in Harford County when it comes to crime and how heroin is affecting that. Sheriff.
Absolutely. And I'd like to thank you for coming out, echo what the county executive and the superintendent had to say. It's good that the room's so full. It's bad that the room's so full. It's demonstrative of how big the problem is. Right after becoming elected sheriff, I attended a training session out in Denver, Colorado for newly elected first-term sheriffs. And 28 other sheriffs from every other jurisdiction, every other geographic part of the United States were present and attended there as well. And we each were asked what our number one problem facing our community is, and it's heroin. And each of the 28, in addition to me, 29, answered the same thing. So although this room is full tonight, we are not in a unique situation. We are fighting the same battle that is being fought across Harford County, across Maryland, and across the country. What we are trying to do a little differently, and I'll explain where the Hope Group concept came out of, is look at things a little differently. How can we look at it? I've told many people prior to becoming sheriff and since becoming sheriff, we haven't arrested our way out of the drug problem in 30, 40 years. We're not going to arrest our way out of it. Law enforcement has its place, but we're not alone in hopefully finding a solution to what we are all suffering from. I do have a short PowerPoint presentation, and unfortunately they don't have a clicker for me, so I'm going to have to ask them to click it for me, so you can click it for me. I want to give you some numbers about basically where we are so far just this year alone. These are 2015. As of today, we have responded to 97, and these are EMS and police responses, so probably they're on the low side. If someone went directly to a medical facility or somehow treated themselves to an overdose, a minor overdose, they're not reflected, so these are on the low side. But 97 non-fatal, and unfortunately as of Saturday night, 21 fatal overdoses. We are on pace right now, not a good pace, to exceed last year's total overdoses by 30. And we're seeing the trend continue to grow from last year into this year. We need to stem this tide somewhere. These are not just numbers, these are lives that have been lost. Lost or we're taking a chance of losing. The age ranges, it's across all demographics, it's across the entire county. It's not an Edgewood problem, it's not a Harrogate Grace problem, it's not a Street or Falston problem. It's an entire Harford County problem. It's not a black problem, it's not a white problem, it's not an Asian problem. It is a human problem, and it's not, we're seeing the fatal one on Saturday night happening in the town of Harrogate Grace. It was a husband and wife, they both overdosed. The husband survived and the wife did not. We're seeing fathers with sons. We're seeing children using it together down in the 2080s. We need to go back and screen, please. So it's across all demographic measuring and across the entire county. Eric talked about two in the last couple of hours. One of those was 20 years old and one of those was 54 years old. So you see where they fit right into our average age group for heroin use. And if it doesn't touch, and I think the majority of this room has probably been personally first-hand or second-hand touched by heroin addiction, but there's so many out in the community who don't feel it's their problem, and they're wrong. It's all of our problem. Because if you're not suffering firsthand, we have plenty of people out there who are committing minor crimes to support this habit, this addiction, and you're going to hear from Mr. Joe Ryan, and it was rightful that he got the round of applause that he did, because he is the greatest asset that this county has that those other 28 sheriffs do not have. So he's going to talk about just how addictive this is and why that draw is so great that people are willing to go out there and commit crimes to continue this habit. Next slide, please. The Harford County Task Force, which Captain Dunbar is the commander of the Sheriff's Office, and it's a conglomeration of all the police departments in the county. Harford County Sheriff's Office, Maryland State Police, Harrogate Grace, Aberdeen, and Bel Air, and I think we have representatives from all of them here tonight, along with a representative from Mr. Castley's office, and we also have a DEA agent, federal DEA agent, embedded with our task force. They have responded, we did protocol change, But I'll get to that in a second. Right now, what we're seeing, they're conducting, how many people are on staff, Lee? About 20 investigators. They have 91 heroin investigations that they've done this year. There's other drugs out in the community that we are also combating, but they've done 91 heroin investigations, 47 felony heroin arrests. These are for distributors. These are for people who are selling heroin in our community. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in just a minute. And we have four current investigations ongoing into death investigations, and 2 of them we're looking at federal prosecution where there's mandatory sentence and severe sentences for selling drugs that result in a fatal overdose. And I'm going to talk about a state law that I supported last year that hopefully will be back this year, and I will also support it again this year. What we are doing at the Harford County Sheriff's Office, the deputies across the entire Sheriff's Office, along with the municipal, along with the state police, have all been trained in Narcan use. I am right, Sean, right? That's right. Troopers have it. And Narcan, if you're not familiar with it, probably this room is all familiar with it, is a drug that can be administered. We have the nasal, and it blocks the immediate effects of a heroin overdose. So everyone up to myself, I know the county executive was just trained in it the other day, everyone has it out there on the street. So far, those numbers you saw, we have 14 saves. We have police officers in this county have saved that 21 from becoming an additional 14 through the use of Narcan, saving that person, intervening in that overdose until a EMS can arrive and administer treatment. The drug task force response, when I took office, one of the things we looked at before forming the work group was what's being done law enforcement-wise, what can we do differently. One of the things we did was we began sending out one of those drug investigators, either from the sheriff's office or from one of the participating police departments, on every overdose, so they could look. And people, one of the criticisms was, so they can look for the additional information, they know how to target the dealers, what questions to ask, so we can figure out who is selling this here in Harford County. One of the questions of that that came back to me was, well, that's just because you want to prosecute these victims. We have not charged a single one of those 97 surviving heroin overdose subjects. I look at them purely as victims. There's certainly probable cause, there's evidence at the scene to warrant a possession charge. That's not my interest, and that's not law enforcement's interest. It's not Captain Dunbar's interest here in Harford County. The interest is in getting these people treatment and getting them off the drug. I'm very interested in prosecuting with Mr. Cashley and the federal attorneys those who would sell it to our loved ones here in Harford County. The Drug Task Force response, that is a initiative that has been picked up and is now being mirrored by the DEA nationwide on all fatal heroin overdoses. They don't have the staffing to respond to all of them, but they have taken that concept and actually implemented it across the country, I believe. Something we're looking at for the future, this is all additional responsibilities that these 20 people did not have last year. So we're looking at bringing in a street-level drug unit that will take these initial responses and go out to the scene. I said one of the criticisms was that I'm looking at prosecuting these victims, and that wasn't the case. What we did with that, we batted it around and we talked about it, and we came up with a card that's displayed on the screen here, a help card, working with Beth Jones from the Health Department and Mr. Joe Ryan from the Office of Drug Control Policy, who I think actually paid for the cards for all the police officers in the county. Every police officer in the county now carries those cards in their shirt pockets with them, so that when they respond out to a scene, they can hand one of the cards to, and I should have it in my pocket, but I can't find it. It's on the table outside. They can hand it to the surviving family members, or the victim of the overdose once the recovery starts, so that they can reach out for that immediate peer-to-peer contact that is so vital when it comes that close to losing your life. That's often when you're willing to make that change. So these health cards have been widely accepted, been very fruitful in people reaching out. We'd like to see everyone reach out, not everyone, but even one life matters. But that's actually a concept that has now been implemented by the Lieutenant Governor's Task Force, a recommendation that's come out, and they're going to do this now statewide. And that's another initiative that started here in Harford County. In addition to that contact, even if they don't reach out to us, through our computer system at the Sheriff's Office, we report out on all of them. For the surviving ones, the Department of Mental Health, Mental Hygiene will also make an outreach effort to try to put that person on the path of recovery. Next screen, please. The public service ads, you saw one here to start the program. We worked in conjunction with the Sheriff's Office, with the county, and the Health Department on developing several public service ads. I have said all along, we need to focus on prevention, because as again, you'll hear from Joe Ryan, this drug is so addictive that if once they're on it, someone's coming back for it eventually. The likelihood of reuse is too high. And we've also initiated a Vivitrol program at our detention center. And Vivitrol is another drug that shows a lot of promise. Working with the health department, with Ms. Jones, it's actually an injection that's given, and it blocks the heroin effect for 30 days. So an inmate can sign up for this just before they're released from the detention center. They'll get the injection, and for 30 days, no matter how much they use, they cannot get high. They can't feel the effects. So that puts them a clean 30 days, and hopefully gives them a chance to recover. So we have, so far, we've had 7 inmates get the shot and be released. We have 2 more that are pending, and 32 actually attended an information session on Vivitrol, with 28 expressing interest in the shot. We only have 400 people in the detention center. That shows you how widespread heroin use is in people who are incarcerated there for that and other things. I spoke about this briefly. There was a bill last year in Annapolis about raising it. Anyone who distributes marijuana or distributes heroin and it results in the death of a victim, a 30-year penalty. It did not pass last year. I will be back in Annapolis supporting that if the delegate who put it in last year resubmits the legislation. And one more screen. And that brings us to forming Hope for Harford. In our work group, we said, what else can we do? But I recognize that after 3 decades of being a police officer, I think like a police officer. My command staff thinks like police officers. My captain thinks like a police officer. We wanted to get some other ideas. So how do we do that? We reached out to Mr. Ryan, to the county, to the health department, but we still wanted some other concepts. So we came up with the idea of having a work group, reaching out to the community, and grabbing individuals who are on the path to recovery, who have suffered from this terrible addiction, who are grabbing family members who have, unfortunately, we have many on the group who have lost loved ones, and approaching this from a community standpoint and saying, what else can we do? And from that work group, the goals of the work group are to increase the amount of overdose prevention initiatives from the Sheriff's Office. That does not mean arrest. That does not mean increase arrest. That means initiatives to keep people away from this or get them off of it if they're on it. And review and modify current enforcement procedures, protocols, reentry programs, and legislative opportunities. I spoke about some of the things in the past, and the work group, anything it comes up with, we're going to work forward with that. And increase community awareness of heroin overdoses and the deadly consequences of heroin addiction. This town hall is a result of the heroin, the actual Hope group, saying, let's take that concept the next step further, and let's go out and grab, instead of 18 sets of eyes, ears, and hands, let's grab a community. And that's what we have tonight. And I would like my Hope group members, we had a plan to sit you all over here, but I think we got some spread out. Just stand up if you're a member of the Hope work group, please. Barbara Canavan said this, she said, the slide does it justice. Addiction isn't a spectator sport. Eventually the whole family gets to play. I know so many in here can identify with that and unfortunately identify with that. We're here tonight, as you heard from everyone so far, to listen, to take your ideas, and hopefully if you have something we haven't thought about, we will make a note and we'll be happy to try something. I've always said we can try something, and if it doesn't work, we'll take a step back and try something else, but it doesn't hurt to try. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you to members of our Hope group. Enjoy working with each and every one of you. I know it's been a long 6 months, and we've got a lot of work still ahead of us on this issue. The next speaker I want to introduce is someone who has been spending the majority of his career, it's only been about 10 years, I think, fighting the war on drugs. He's our head of the Drug Control Policy Office here in Harford County, Mr. Joe Ryan. Joe, I read a story the other week. You can give him a hand. Joe, I read a story the other week that the price of heroin is now less than a pack of cigarettes.
Definitely, yeah.
A drug this powerful, a drug this strong. How is it so prevalent in our community? How is it taken a hold of everybody and everything that it touches?
I mean, the word is called addiction, and that's what we'll start off. I mean, heroin is the serial killer that's in our neighborhoods. I mean, we've talked about it before when we were doing our PSAs. It's the serial killer that's out there. We'll start with the next slide. Talk about the addiction process when we're talking about drugs and alcohol abuse. The blue line up there represents us feeling normal. We woke up, we went to work, we did whatever our thing was today. But nobody wants to feel normal today. Everybody wants to feel good. So you get high from the drug, it goes into our body. That's what the green line represents. The next click. Our body processes the drugs out of our body. We come back to normal. But with heroin, once you get that high, it was really a good high. You want to do it again. But when you take the drug for the second and third time, you never reach that initial high. And then you go below normal. That's all the depression that sets in. And then you need the drug just to feel normal, so you're not sick. And then you're addicted to the drug. And as Ms. Gallion said in the PSA, it's that first or second time. You're addicted to the drug. You're now a slave to that substance so you don't get sick. And I'm here to say treatment works. I did 26 years in law enforcement, 16 years at the prevention office. Treatment works. But the national rate for recovery for opiate addicts is 3%. That's why prevention is so important. Our medical facility cannot fix this. It's such a powerful drug. Harford County students who have used heroin. You see the dark line represents the 2013 Maryland Adolescent Survey, and the green line represents the 2007. 8th graders, 0.6% of our 10th graders were experimenting with this drug back in 07. 6 years later, 2.4%. You go to our 10th graders, 1.1% in 07. In 13, it's 3.5%. It's tripled. Our kids have tripled using the drug. And you see what the 12th grade numbers are. 1.3, we're up to 4.1%. In the 9th grade, it's 5% already. That's what that survey said. So the kids, our students, are using harder drugs at a younger age. That's the scary part that's out there. 10 things you need to know about heroin. The number of heroin abusers is growing in the state of Maryland. The face of heroin has changed. It's not an inner city problem anymore. It's a problem out in rural communities like Harford County. 3 out of 4 heroin abusers started using heroin because they got addicted to pain medication. So when doctors prescribe something to you for whatever your ailment is, make sure you know what you're getting. You know your body better than any doctor will know. 12 to 13 tons of heroin is smuggled into the country just to feed our habit, our opiate addict. And that number is growing, according to DEA. Most heroin found in Maryland is smuggled across the U.S.-Mexican border. We're currently in our 4th heroin epidemic in the past 50 years. And I think that's year 1 when Joe was elected our state's attorney. You know how to get yourself. Fentanyl is used as a cutting agent that's responsible for a lot of the deaths in this epidemic and the previous epidemic. Fentanyl is a very high powerful opiate that DEA is telling us they're now making it in clandestine labs in China and smuggling it into the country and using that as a cutting agent. 7 out of 10 Maryland abusers use heroin that comes from South America. 2 out of 10 in Maryland come from Southwest Asian heroin, and 1 out of 10 use Mexican heroin. Now the big thing about marijuana, let's legalize marijuana, is the drug cartels are cutting down all their marijuana now because we're growing so much marijuana in America. Guess what they're replacing the crop with? Yes, opiates, the poppy seeds. So they want to get into this drug business. And finally, number 10, Eric, heroin purity is up and the cost is down. Heroin is cheaper now than it's ever been. What do we know that's cheaper today and better than 10 years ago? Nothing. It's this deadly drug that's killing our youth, that's devastating our families. Prescription drugs, they're just as dangerous as illegal street drugs. Like I said, most individuals, once they get off that drug, they're addicted to the opiate, they're turning to street heroin. Harford County high school students who took a prescription drug without a doctor's prescription. Our 9th grade students, 7.9% of them from the adolescent survey. And we can back these numbers up with treatment numbers and with arrest information. So we're fairly confident in these numbers. They do a great job down at the Maryland State Department of Education. You see the 10th graders, 7.4, 11th graders, 11.8, and our 12th graders, 11%. They're already taking these prescription drugs and they don't even know what they are. Just think if somebody took a kid, a healthy 14-year-old, 15-year-old, took the high blood pressure medicine that I'm on, they would have a medical emergency. Their blood pressure would drop so quickly. And where are the children getting these medications from? They're not getting them from the scary drug dealers that our sheriff is trying to arrest. They're getting it from family members or friends. You can see the numbers up there. They get it from a friend, they steal it from a friend. That's where they're getting the medications from. It's so important to secure your medications. Keep them under lock and key. You have babies, you have babysitters come in, have your medications locked up. You have repair folks come in, your medications, they're looking for that. If your house is on the market, they'll want to go in and I have to use the regular bathroom, and they can check for medications. I can go to a medicine cabinet in less than 5 seconds to see if there's any good drugs there. So keep that in mind. Secure your medication. We do the drug take-backs. We have information outside. Please pick up that information. Next slide. Harford County desks, all those desks are tracked by my office. You see the green number, the green bar up here represents the total desks. We'll go back to 2010, it was 43. 12 of those were heroin, but 30 were prescription drugs. And I knew there's a math person out there. That only comes up to 42. The other one was an alcohol death that year. Somebody drank themselves to death. But we knew we had a pain medicine epidemic going on. We did the prescription drug take-backs, the prescription drug monitoring program, and you see those numbers decreased over the years. The heroin deaths then start to increase in 2013 and 2014, where last year it was 43 deaths, 23 of those related to heroin, 20 were related to prescription drugs when they did the autopsies down at the medical examiner's office. So this is truly an epidemic that we're dealing with. Drug overdose is the #1 cause of accidental death for adults in the United States. Over the past 5 years, more Harford County residents have died from drug and alcohol overdose deaths than murders and fatal car crashes combined. We get outraged when there's a murder in our community. We get outraged if there's a fatal crash on one of our state roads. We want state roads to redesign and put up safety. We want the sheriff to have more deputies to curb the murders. Where's the outcry of all the people dying from drug overdoses? That's what we need from our communities. Thank you so much. We keep information on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. We try to keep the community updated on events going on. So,
and the trouble with you, Joe, is you don't care enough about your job.
Okay, Don.
Thank you, Joe. As always, great presentation. We're going to really hammer home the importance of how deadly this drug is. And it is deadly. It's probably the worst killer on our streets, whether that be the streets of the inner city or whether that be the quiet suburban Harford County roads. It's a deadly drug. It's killing too many family members. It's killing too many innocent people. We've heard tonight from some of the panelists, and they will be here all night to answer your questions. We appreciate them being here this evening. And we also appreciate our elected officials. If I could have our elected and appointed officials in the county, including school board members, Town managers, can you just stand up for us, please? I want you to look around and see how many of your elected officials actually showed up this evening. And they showed up because they care. They want to listen. They want to learn and understand, just like all of us, how deadly this drug is. And then they want to take it, whether it be in Bel Air at the county council or in Annapolis, and take action on this issue. So thank you for being here this evening. We are now going to go into the town hall portion of our program. This is the opportunity for the audience to talk directly to the panel, to talk directly to the elected officials, and to talk directly to each other, to have a community conversation about this issue. Each panelist, I've asked folks to sign up in advance. I think we have about 14 speakers that have signed up this evening. And if we do get time, we will come out for other comments in the audience. There will also be a question and answer period after that. I'm going to ask each of the panelists, that includes you, Don, to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And I'm going to have the timer up here. I know I've got a round, friendly face, but if you go over 3 minutes, you might see me get mad. Don.
Don, I was supposed to introduce you, but you've been introduced like 3 times already during this day. This is Don Mathis, Director of Alumni Services for Fowler Run Township.
Thanks, Amber. I'll keep my comment. First of all, I do want to thank the county executive and the sheriff for pulling this meeting together. This is really good stuff. And Joe, the answer to your question, where's the outreach? It's in this room. It's in this room, my brother. A couple quick comments to the superintendent. I've been pleased to work in a work group with Lieutenant Governor and the Governor's Task Force in heroin overdose, and there have been some members there from the State Department of Education, and they've talked about some plans they have and programs they have in PSAs. My advice, and I'm actually wearing my former Boys and Girls Club hat, as much as you can involve some young people in the design of those programs and those messages and what have you. I think there's been an emphasis, at least at the statewide level, on looking at the adults in the room, the people with degrees, and that's important and that's necessary. But I think, because I've seen the meetings before, involve the young people in that process, including the out-of-school people. Get to the Ys and the Scouts and the law enforcement explorers and 4-H and the others and get them involved. Along that line, whatever we do, second point, use evidence-based practices. And I know Joe Ryan's got a busload of those from the feds and what have you, but I think we can all remember how intuitively happy we were about the Just Say No program that Nancy Reagan started with all good intentions. And what does the research shows? That more kids did drugs after Just Say No because of Just Say No. So there's a lot of stuff, and the research is pretty clear on that. There's a lot of stuff that's emotionally appealing, but it doesn't really work. My third and final point is I'm glad to be joined by my colleague, Dr. Marianne, our Israel son, who directs our new outreach program at Upper Chesapeake. And why that's special is this is a community program. We take medical assistants, Medicaid people, and it's one of the only programs in the county, if not the only one, that works with pregnant moms. And the one slide Joe didn't show is 34.9% of every 1,000 births in Harford County citizens come with a mother's addicted. That's serious business. And I want to thank everybody for being here. This is tremendous, and let's go get them. Thank you.
I think Don yielded his time back. Our second speaker tonight is actually a member of our Hope for Harford work group, and she's a mom who I know has dealt with this addiction. Joan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sheriff Gaylor, for starting this whole program. You are very admired. Many people are very grateful for this opportunity. I come mostly as a concerned citizen and a parent of a 21-year-old who has been a heroin addict and dealing and struggling with this disease for the better part of 7 years. This disease just took our house like a tornado. It just came through, and the goal of this disease was to destroy everything in its path. And it nearly brought us down, but we're still here, and we're still working, and we're still desperately struggling to save our daughter. And I say our daughter because her father's here as well. And it just came upon us like a complete nightmare. And as we held her as an infant and beautiful creative, talented little gal that she is, as I held her, never in a million years would I ever envision myself in this position to speak to a room of people about how my little girl became a heroin addict. And it was sort of a story right out of a Lifetime episode, because she is a great person and intelligent, a distinguished honors, little lacrosse player, cheerleader, everything that all-American little lady. She has a younger sister and 2 younger brothers, and they've all been affected, desperately affected and sad. We've witnessed some things that we never thought we would. Her father and I both come from, a long line of wholesome people, good Catholic families. Yes, there were a lot of Irish drinkers. We were never exposed to heroin or any of that. And so it came as a big surprise. The district I worked for in Montgomery County paid up towards $500,000 on behalf of our daughter's recovery. We sent her to 10 different rehabs around the country. I was told they were the best of the best and the brightest and the doctors and the therapists, and you have them in the best place. We were naive, we were hopeful, prayerful, and to no avail. I want to say how grateful I was for the insurance and the position, but she still struggles, and she has been the best places, and the money paid it, and they even paid partial for aftercare in these halfway houses. We're charging up to $600 a week to live there. These people were making huge amounts of money, and if they didn't pay their rent, they were out. So what happens? The parents pay it, and then when the parents run out of money, oh well, you're on the street. And I'm not saying that's how Harford County halfway houses are, because I think it's much better. I think it's much better here. That was in Florida. But my time is going to stop. What I want to say in regard to education, I think that that's the key. Educating the kids. I know that there's a health unit consisting of, I think, 9 weeks in the freshman year. And I understand maybe 1 week is spent talking about heroin and other opiates, and maybe a day will be. I think it's all about educating and changing the prevailing attitude of they're shameful and we're embarrassed. We've got to change it into let's help these kids and get these drug dealers out, because they prey right around the halfway houses and around the recovery homes, and they make tons of money. Thank you for letting me speak.
We have numbers, and Amber, I know we're looking for number 3. It's Yvonne Harris. There's Yvonne over there. And if you can just focus your attention in the left corner, I'm going to point her out. Chrissy has some very nice construction paper, red and yellow, so when you get to that 3-minute period, she'll put up one of those nice red sheets of paper for you. Yvonne.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for holding this forum. We desperately needed it. And I am going to refer to my notes, because I get nervous talking in front of people, so I'm going to forget what I've written. I am just a mom who lost her daughter almost 4 years ago. She was 19 years old. She died of a heroin overdose. When that happened, I immediately went into this mode where I felt like I had to save all the other children. So what I did was I started focusing on what we could do in the county. I spoke to the county executive, not you, Mr. the previous administration. And I told him what my concerns were, and I asked him to please put money in the budget for some kind of program in the county, some kind of education. His response was, we'd like to, but sorry. So then, after that, what I did was I went to the school board, previous superintendent. The same thing, I asked them, please, can we have a better curriculum than what we have now? We need something better. They did not even give me the respect to say, sorry, no, we can't. They just said, next speaker, please. After that, I went to the county council, and I stood in front of them, and I urged them to please address the problem. Same thing, sorry, we wish we could. I went from there to Annapolis. I stood in front of the General Assembly, and I begged them to do something for Harford County. Our children are dying. And they said, we can't do anything, we have no power over the education in the county. I didn't know what to do. My beautiful girl had died, and I was devastated, and nobody would listen. Just by luck, I saw a video on YouTube about a town in New Jersey that held a rally because they had 6 overdose deaths in a year. Well, when my daughter died, there were 3 that died that night. It brought it to about around 40 for our county. This was 2 days after Christmas in 2011. So I thought, I've got to do it. If they can do it for 6 people, I can do it. And I thought, how am I going to do it? Where am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? So I was introduced to Mr. Joe Ryan, and he has been a godsend. He and his staff have taken me under their wings, and they are angel wings. They have helped me. We've put together a rally. I want to thank him. I want to thank Barb, Patrick, Tara, Katie, and everybody else that works with him that I don't know their names. We will be doing a rally September 26th at 10 o'clock. It will be our 3rd annual Human Road to Stop the Dope. And I encourage you all to come. The first 50 people will be getting a t-shirt, just like this. And I truly believe that education and awareness is where we need to start. So that's what we're going to do on that morning, is we're going to bring awareness to Harford County. So please join me. Thank you.
Just to let you know, this county executive, the one that signs my paycheck, put $100,000 extra money in my budget to, we're putting recovery coaches out trying to keep the addicts, get them back healthy. So, yeah, he signs my paycheck, but I want to applaud him for giving me some of the tools that we need.
Yvonne, you mentioned that rally on the 26th. Where will that be held?
It's going to be on Hayes Street where the, is it the Healthy Harford event?
Part of Healthy Harford event.
Part of the Healthy
We have flyers out on the table advertising the event. Thank you.
Just a reminder that this is also being live streamed on Periscope. I just learned what Periscope was last week. It's part of Twitter. Just learned what Twitter was the week before that. So if you're at home watching us, we welcome you to the forum as well. And if you have questions, please tweet that in to our lovely PIO over here who will be monitoring social media this evening. We have our 4th speaker tonight, Betty. There you are, Betty.
Hi, my name is Betty Ann Tassone, and I have been a resident of Harford County for 27 years. This is a picture of my only child, Jessica, who at the age of 24 died of a heroin overdose. There is not a day that goes by that I do not think about her and what I could have done to prevent this tragedy. We made a lot of mistakes just like every parent does, but in truth, my husband and I did everything we knew how to help her during her 10-year journey. But this kind of loss is unforgiving. My daughter did not want to be a heroin addict. Her childhood was a happy one, and she was very involved in dance most of her life. As she got older, she was on a national dance team, and she practiced 6 nights a week. We were at competitions many, many weekends. When she turned 14, she decided that she was missing out on too much with school and her friends. So she decided that she wanted to stop dance. And that is when we began our downward spiral with what we consider to be our happy little family. So for the next 10 years, our lives were in turmoil on so many different levels. Now, I grew up in the 60s, so I swore that if my daughter was ever on drugs, I was going to know it. But I didn't. In our days of growing up, the words opiate, oxycontin, and heroin were not mentioned or used. Now, it's just an everyday event around the globe. Finding out your child is addicted to opiates and arrested for possession with intent to distribute is a very frightening event. It was not just normal teenage behavior that was occurring, it was way more than that. So I immediately decided that I was not going to waste any of my time and energy to worry about what my neighbors thought, what my friends thought. I was just going to concentrate on what I had to do to help my daughter, no matter what we had to face. And believe me, there will be people that will defriend you. Luckily for us, our family and friends stayed with us, and they have supported us to this day. And we also got connected with ACR, Addiction Connections Resource here in Harford County. And when you go to the meetings and you know you're not alone through this situation, and you educate yourself. That's the best way to help your child. It took us more than a year to get Jessica into rehab out of town. She had many relapses after that, but she kept fighting. Needless to say, and all the parents have the same questions. I mean, you have many sleepless nights. Many times, your heart would skip a beat when a policeman would come to the door or call. So many items stolen from your house, and you think, oh no, she wouldn't do that. She just wouldn't. And then you look at their eyes and you know they're lying, and you want to believe them, so you do. Tough love is really tough. There is no solution for everyone. Each family has to set their own boundaries with what they can live with. Parents have to stand together, and believe me when I say you feel like you're on a roller coaster every day of your life. I'm trying to make this a little shorter.
Make sure everybody gets a turn. You're fine.
3 months, my daughter, when she was clean, she went to college, got straight A's, went to NA meetings, had a sponsor, did everything she was supposed to do. Eventually, she went on the Suboxone, the methadone, inpatient treatment, outpatient, lots of counseling, and then we did a 6-month treatment with the Vivitrol shot. And once again, we had our daughter back. 3 months later, she was still doing great, happy with her life, had a great job, paying off all her bills. And then one night, she met up with the wrong person again. And the next day, my husband found her, came in from work and found her lying on her bed with a needle in her arm. Words cannot express the pain and agony of this disease. Your child is no longer the same person, but believe me when I tell you that they are still there. They're just hidden from the drugs. Every now and then, you see a glimpse of the past, and it would renew your hope for the future. Don't ever give up on them. There is always hope. Just listen to the many stories of recovery. I have one last thing to say, and that is every day I am devastated not to have my daughter with me, but every day I am very proud of how hard she fought this ugly disease. My way of coping with the loss of my child is to work with the fundraising for ACR and raise funds for treatment. We will be holding our second shrimp and bull roast next April. Our first event was very successful with 500 people attending, and we raised $30,000. So if there's anybody in this room that would like to participate, help us with donations, help us plan it, would like to attend, please get in touch with me. We truly appreciate everyone's hard work and participation. I just hope and pray that our community can work all together in saving lives, especially of those of our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, our fifth speaker is Jenny Smith. Jenny's in the corner. Just a reminder, if you see me standing next to you, don't be intimidated. Just trying to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak this evening.
Hi, my name is Jenny Smith. I'm here on behalf of one of my best friends that I lost 4 years ago due to this horrible thing. I want to start off with a poem that is kind of dedicated to him and to addiction. My sweetest friend has gone away. The price of love I cannot pay. In times of need, my darkest hour, 'twas you, my friend, to whom I cowered. You took me up and made me see the other side of reality. You showed me worlds where time stands still and revealed the gap that only you can fill. Where love is none and friends are few, it's there that you've shown what you really do. You've blinded my eyes to all the pain, but my heart you've killed and my soul you've drained. You've stolen my life and taken my friends, and I feel it's time for this journey to end. But no matter the pain you've caused me to feel, the money you've stolen or the people you've killed, I'll always remember the good times we shared, the places you took me and the way that you cared. So we take this last dance, and then we will dance no more. I miss you, my friend, forevermore. Matt was my best friend for 13 years. However, sometimes I question if I returned the same love and care. We were best friends since 7th grade. I just turned 30 in May. That's a long time. As teenagers, what began as fun times with friends, parties, and just hanging out quickly turned to fear and doubt. I watched my best friend as we drank and experimented with what to us was not real drugs. It wasn't long before noticing when he would come over to my parents and I would watch him stealing pills and alcohol. So I invited him less, thinking I cut off the source, it would stop, never thinking he would seek other alternatives that would lead to a huge problem. However, you never want to lose a friend by confronting or questioning them when things like you see changing in them and things falling apart in life. Matt and I grew apart from time to time as he began to try newer, stronger things. I missed hanging around him so much, but could not be his babysitter, worrying about if he passed out or overdosed. Although I sent letters and cards while he was in rehab as a teen several times, when he would come home, we would discuss nothing about it. We lost contact. Sorry, I lost my spot. We lost contact for a few years in our early 20s as I was totally drug-free and drank only on special occasions. I started a family, got married, had 2 little boys. Everything was great. It had been about 5 years since we had talked. We reconnected. He was in a relationship and spoke of her as the one. I was so happy for him. Unfortunately, in my life, my marriage was falling apart. I was depressed and unhappy. I started drinking very heavily and did not see a problem. I was still a wife and a mom. My kids were taken care of, my house was kept. I wasn't passing out or stumbling. I was very good at hiding it, until one day the walls fell down. I was a single mom with 2 very small kids. And as through any hard time, Matt was my shoulder, my friend, and we were each other's best enablers. We started smoking weed again, but this time we stepped up our game, drinking, taking pills, snorting pills, and I knew that we were much worse things he was doing than when we were not hanging out. Yet I was not going to lose my friend again. He was back in my life, and I was happy about that. Plus, he was planning a wedding, buying a house, had a great job, so I thought it wasn't as big of a problem. He could do anything a non-user could do. He functioned. I went to rehab and through a great program and was on a good path. And one Sunday morning, I got the worst message of my life. He was gone. What could I do? Why didn't I tell someone? Oh my God, his wife, his family, his friends. I blamed myself for a very long time. I went into counseling and got help to deal with this loss and my own issues with drugs. I'm not 100% sure my kids would have a mom today if it had not been for this wake-up call in my life. I'm extremely thankful for that. However, I wish I could have shared these amazing times in my life with my best friend. So I will leave you with this, because I think it often. What if I asked him if he needed help? What if I called his parents? What if he got mad at me? Well, if he was mad at me, he could still be here every day. He could still be here every day telling me that, not being gone. So ask your friend, family member, spouse, do you need help? Don't worry about losing someone for the day, because they could be gone for a lifetime.
Don't blame yourself. You've done great. We're proud that you went through recovery. Got a great family. Alberta, our 6th speaker tonight.
Good evening. My name is Alberta Breyer, and I manage the substance abuse services for the Department of Juvenile Services. And I'm not quite sure, I think I would have thought that there would be more of us here. So that goes right into what I'm here to offer. We're very concerned about our kids that are using any drug, but specifically heroin. We're concerned about educating their families. We're concerned about educating our youth that enter into our system, hoping that they will not graduate to harder drugs. And so I'm here to say that whatever we can do, any committee we need to be on, we're here, okay? My scope of responsibility is statewide, but
my name is Terrence Crockett. I'm a regional coordinator for substance abuse services at the Department of Juvenile Services, and this is one of my regions. So as you said, anything you need, we're here. You know, it's sad for our kids in the Department of Juvenile Services that a kid has to get arrested in order to get help. And we should reach them long before we say it's a disease, but then we still, for us, we try to make sure that we offer the best services that we can when your kids come to us. We treat them just like they're our children. And we know the progression of the disease, and we know that this plays a big part in our service. So anything that we can do, thank you.
And just one other thing that I like to say is that I know that we have a medical director that is just pro health and hope. One of the things that we're having trouble with is connecting our kids that we've identified that are addicted to heroin and or other opiates, and also alcohol. But because there are very limited resources in our communities for adolescents, we're having trouble with that. So that's why we desperately want to be part of whatever's happening so that we can partner with making sure that there's continuity of care just throughout our entire system. And thank you.
Our next speakers this evening is a couple that, members of our Sheriff's Hope Work Group, but a couple that's also faced this tragedy, and they've been a driving force in educating the public, working with the Sheriff's Office, working with Joe Ryan, the Office of Drug Control Prevention, the County Executive, to address this issue. Craig and Lisa McLaughlin. Pastor.
We're the McLaughlins. We are the parents of four children who were raised and schooled here in Harford County, very involved in church activities and rec activities and school activities. Went all the way through school in the wonderful Harford County public school system. Very pleased with all the things that Harford County had to offer. Our three oldest children are now doing well in adulthood, have established their careers. Our youngest, Hannah, died of a heroin and fentanyl overdose in March 2014. Hannah was 19 years old. In some ways, she fell through the cracks. When there were people who should have been able to pick up on things, they weren't picked up on. And I'm not talking about her substance abuse, because when that took effect in her life, people were figuring it out. We were figuring it out at home. People at school were figuring it out. We did everything we could to stem that tide. People who get involved with drugs, who fall into addiction, almost 100%, it's because of pain that they have. Pain from trauma, pain from abuse, pain from neglect, pain from something that they are trying to self-medicate for. Hannah fell through the cracks at a young age when people in the school didn't notice some of her emotional things that were going on, and we at home didn't pick up on the cues because we didn't know. We were not educated on that. So we're talking about prevention yes, prevention as far as education for the kids in school and stuff, but prevention needs to start even before they're starting to dabble in drugs.
I'd like to just share a few statistics, a few of which have been shared here. First of all, it's very well attested that between 80 to close to 100% of women who end up in addiction were sexually abused. Our daughter's pain was sexual abuse. The numbers for men are a little more uncertain, but most experts would say they're much higher than we think. So, given that, can we create a climate in Harford County of preventing child sexual abuse? Can that be a part of what public schools do? Can that be what we as a community strive? If we want to, if 97% of heroin addicts are dying of heroin addiction, it's prevention, prevention, prevention. Prevention starts preventing child sexual abuse. We have a fantastic organization here in Harford County that I never knew about until the last couple of years. It's called RACE, Race Against Abuse of Children Everywhere. They have an outstanding program, way beyond anything I've seen, for families to safeguard their children. So that's the number one thing I would ask. Can we create a climate where we are working with an organization like RACE to strive to prevent child sexual abuse in Harford County? Can we, number two, create a climate of educating parents to recognize? We were stunned after Hannah was a heroin addict and we found out about her abuse. We didn't have a clue. Can we create a climate in Harford County where parents are educated to recognize the sign? I'm a pastor. I educate my church now. They hear about it all the time. So can we create that climate in Harford County where parents are learning to recognize the signs and what needs to be done before they walk into middle school for the first time? It has to be the truth. Another statistic we heard here, 75%, and I would argue it's probably higher now, or maybe higher here in Harford County, of persons who end up heroin addicts began as prescription pain pill addicts. The heroin crisis is a prescription pain pill crisis. I understand law enforcement has a horrendous time trying to deal with that. The manufacturers of OxyContin, read about it. They created this pain pill crisis in the 1990s. The family who owns that company is now in the top 25 wealthiest families in America, $14 billion of wealth. So understand, fighting this is very hard. But can we create a climate in Harford County that brings shame to the irresponsible and careless prescription of pain pill medication? Every heroin addict I've talked to here in Harford County began on pain pills. And one more quick thing, and that is the statistic again. 97% of persons who end up heroin addicts die of heroin addiction. So therefore it is prevention, prevention, prevention. And I really thank the school superintendent for that open door invitation you gave us to come. And my request would be that the school board or whoever it is, I understand principals are very hesitant to bring somebody like Joe Ryan in, and my wife and I and other people are going to come in and talk about drugs to the kids. Because I understand parents, there are those parents who complain that somebody said something. But could the school board say to the principals, you must have, whatever, I'm just talking on the top of my head here, but 2 assemblies per year that every child at every level of school must attend. And principals, we will back you up when some parent complains. Because when I just talk about the reality of what addiction looks like. And what I say is, for example, my daughter, and virtually 100% of women heroin addicts in Harford County end up having to prostitute. That's what our middle high kids need to hear. And I know parents will complain, but this is what our kids need to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig and Lisa. Very well spoken. Very well said. On the way here tonight, I had a gentleman that I got a chance to talk to. He was our last one to sign up, but I knew he really had a lot that he wanted to say tonight. Lou Storm. There he is, right here in the front. Best seat in the house.
I just think it'd be a little better if I don't talk in front of the speaker. We've all heard about the problem, described very well, and the intentions, very sincere intentions of the parties at the table here, what they will do for it. And I have to say that I don't hold that much hope. I'm sorry. Not that that's anything against any of you people. This is more than just a Harford County problem. It's more than a state of Maryland problem. It's a United States of America problem. We are fighting a war. Now, I've heard the war mentioned up there at the table. This is a true war. I see little difference between this and ISIS coming into the United States and causing trouble. Why can't we fight this? Why can't we fight this the same as we would fight ISIS? We need our friends, the representatives and senators in Washington, to do something about this, to realize that this is a federal problem and get something done about it on the federal level. Thank you.
We had a gentleman that contacted me early on when we first put out the release about the Hope Town Hall meeting. He wants to come all the way from Baltimore up here, Mr. Richard Henderson, with the National East Baltimore Drug Coalition. Richard.
Could you give these to the folks at the table for me? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good evening. My name is Richard Henderson. I'm also a Harford County resident. I've been here for the last 8 years, and I work in Baltimore. And I just want to correct Eric a little bit on the name of the organization. It's actually the East Baltimore Drug-Free Community Coalition, and I've, tonight I've heard a lot of interesting things, and we do have a problem. We have a serious problem. One of the things that we do in Baltimore that's really unique, and I had an opportunity to talk to some of my partners at CADCA. CADCA is Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. I talked to some of my partners at SAMHSA, and I told them, I said, the grant says, because I'm under a DFC grant, and Joe Ryan, he's one of the people that I communicate with through email, and with that DFC grant, it says that our jurisdiction is different zip codes in the city of Baltimore. And, I told him, I said, that's good that we have this grant. We could go to different places in Baltimore. But, I said, the age group of young people is a problem for me. I said, I know we're supposed to be educating youth between the ages of 12 and 18. I said, well, we got to do better than this. I said, we got to get into these elementary schools. And I can say that, within the past 2 years, we've been able to get into some elementary schools in Baltimore, and we've been able to talk to youth about this whole substance abuse problem that's plaguing our country. And one of the elementary schools that we had an opportunity to work with, they came up with a slogan, and the slogan says, "No, not me," meaning that they're not going to get involved with drugs or alcohol regardless of what they've seen in their communities. They made t-shirts, we were able to share that information, with some of our partners, that we work with. But, again, like I said, I live in Harford County, and, I'm here to help. I'm all over the place. I go to Cecil County. They have a drug-free coalition. I hang out with them sometime. When I got off of work earlier today, I had an opportunity to talk to one of my colleagues in Philadelphia. When we have these conferences, I meet a lot of different people, and, I do a lot of networking. And, I had gotten an invitation a couple of years to go to Portland, Oregon, just to talk and help educate, some of the folks that were a part of the coalition. But like I said, I'm a resident here. I like it here. I don't want to go anywhere else in this country, move. So I'm gonna continue to stay in Harford County. And like I said to the panel, to Sheriff Gaylor, as he said that, this is it doesn't matter what color you are, it affects everybody. And I'm, like I said, I'm here to help. I want to be a part of the solution of talking to our young people. One of the other things I want to say real quick is that I work at the homeless shelter over in Belcamp. And, I have an opportunity to talk to a lot of the homeless people. And I hear some of these stories about how people have gotten a hold to, prescription drugs and heroin and where it's coming from. And I spend a lot of my time, talking and just counseling people, just trying to help them, and say, there has to be a better way, trying to help provide resources. So I know my time is up, but what I'm going to do is put some business cards out on the table. If anybody wants to contact me, you can contact me by email. But like I said, I'm here to help. I want to be a part of the solution. And I just want to say to the families that have lost somebody, because of heroin or any other type of drug, God bless you. We're praying for you, that God will heal the wounds, heal you, through this process. Because it's not an easy thing, and like I said, working in Baltimore, I hear a lot of young people, talk about what they've seen, what they've witnessed. And it's not an easy thing to deal with. It's a difficult thing. So thank you again for having me, and I want to be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I think it's evident by the amount of people that are here tonight that everyone here wants to be part of that solution. So thank you for your kind words, Richard. Lynn Fowler is our next speaker this evening. Lynn.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I'm the mother of an addict. I'm here to spread the message of hope. I have a son, and we're both from Harford County. He moved to Florida. He now works in recovery. He's a successful recovering addict. It happens. There's hope, and recovery works. One of the things One of the reasons why he moved to Florida was because it's one of the biggest sober living communities in the nation. That's South Florida. California has the other one. What we need to do is increase activities that revolve around being sober. We need kids to be actively involved in fun things. They need to learn that there are other things that are fun besides drinking and drugging. That's one of my points. The other point, which I think is missing in this whole forum here, is I look around and I see a lot of adults. I went to Florida, and one of the things I was very grateful for was my son took me to NA and AA meetings with him. There are a lot of open meetings that adults can go to learn from the addicts what addiction is all about. Not from other adults, not from parents who are frustrated and stressed and angry and upset, but from successful addicts that have made it through. One of the big things is that addicts are good at helping other addicts. We need to reach out to these groups and bring in the addicts that have been successful to help the addicts that are still struggling. Addicts helping addicts. That's the one thing I have found that has been majorly successful. I mean, parents have a tendency to get angry and frustrated. Addicts understand the frustration, they don't judge, and they feel like there's a communication there. That's what we need to bring into our programs. We need to reach out to NA, AA, wonderful fellowships, wonderful, wonderful communities of fellowship, people helping other people. I'll be quick. The other thing I wanted to speak about is the affordability of treatments. Kudos to Father Martin Ashley's for bringing in an outreach program that is affordable for the state. A lot of our kids do not have insurance, and these rehabs are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And treatment needs to go beyond 5 days of detox and 30 days in a rehab. My son overdosed and nearly died. It was his 5th rehab where he found it. He's alive, he's helping other people. We actually work together and have gotten 4 people from Harford County into treatment in Florida. 3 of them are success stories. 1 of them is in relapse right now. But it's a shame that sometimes our kids have to move out of state to find what they need. We need to bring it more into our own communities. And I'm telling you, it's addicts helping addicts. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. I had Verna White that had contacted us, but she didn't check in. I don't know if she made it to the forum tonight or not. I don't see her. Our last group of speakers, Pastor Keith from a church here in Bel Air, contacted us very early on, and he didn't want to just speak himself. He wanted to bring some of his friends with him. And these are gentlemen, all gentlemen here in the front, in the second row, that have went into recovery and are now working through that process. So Pastor Keith, I invite you up and I invite you to bring your gentlemen with you.
Thank you. Let me introduce to you the top 3% right here. We're looking at 3%. These are the men of Agape. I'm Pastor Keith. I am the director and senior pastor for Agape House Ministries. We have 5 single-family homes in Bel Air, and our goal is to show the love of Christ to broken men. And I don't have a whole lot of experience in this. I don't even know how God chose me to do this. All I knew is that my relationship with God radically transformed me, and I knew if He could do what He did to me, that He can certainly do it to other men. And so we bring these guys in. We get about a new guy every week for the last 7 years, 350 men since 2008, and we show them the love of Christ. They come in broken, they come in with pain, as Pastor Craig mentioned, and we try to get to the root. And humans can't get to the root. Only God can get to the root. And we show them the love of Christ, that their past doesn't equal their future, that if you have a relationship with God, that you are forgiven. You no longer need to feel condemned. And with this in mind, you can now move forward. And when our guys stand up and testify, they never say, "Hi, my name is Mason, and I'm an addict, or I'm an alcoholic." They know that I don't stand for that. They stand up and they say, "I'm a new creation in Christ. I'm a joint heir with Jesus Christ, and I am a child of God." And as they continue to speak these words of life to themselves, and as we as a staff speak life over these gentlemen, their lives are radically changed forever. Here's another thing. We believe in second chances. We get highly scrutinized and sometimes judged for giving second, sometimes third, and sometimes fourth. I'm going to hand the microphone to a gentleman right now who I think he had about 3 strikes, and then he came around. And I'm wondering if I would have given up on him on the first try, or maybe even the second chance, if he'd be standing before you today. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Travis Wovis, and he wants to just give his testimony first.
How you doing? Let's see, I went to jail May 6th because I was an addict, and addicts led to criminal activities. So I was housed at the Harford for a little bit. On day 3 of being housed in T Block, I contemplated suicide because after being in 47 different foster homes with me and my twin brother, we were finally adopted at age 10. After we were adopted, we went through our rebellious stage. Our parents kicked us out when we were 17, and we've been on the streets ever since. Well, I came to my mother when I was in jail, opened up to her, my adopted mother, and told her that I was a heroin addict. She had no idea. I hadn't even done it one time. And she hung up the phone on me, and I haven't talked to her since. I contemplated suicide that day. That was hard, everything that was going on. And of all people that could have been housed with me in T-Block, here comes somebody from the Agape House. And he spoke life into me, literally saved my life. I got out of jail 68 days later. After I got out of jail, I was clean and sober. On the 68th day, I was getting my hair cut. I walk out from getting my hair cut, and there's a Jezebel girl asking me if I want to have a little fun. So I said, yeah, chasing girls. And it was one time, and I overdosed that day, and ended up in the hospital, died. I don't know how long I was dead for. But I was on 100% oxygen, 100% life support. Had a catheter, you know, the works, and a little bit darker than these walls here. And God saved my life. He gave me a second chance, and I'm only 23 years old. So my twin brother's in prison as we speak because of drugs. So he gave me a second chance, and I have a lot of sympathy for all the young people that have died in this county specific. I've been in this county since I was 10. I've seen a lot of people die from this disease and this demon, and I'm glad he gave me a second chance, and I'm willing to be a part of the cure and the fight against this drug. Thank you.
Hi, all. My name is Kenny. My addiction started very young. I first started experimenting with opiates. I was actually 13 years old here in Harford County. When I was 15, that was the first time I tried heroin. And then before I graduated high school, I was a full-blown intravenous, using needles, whole 9 yards. And wasn't much longer, you know, I was out on the streets. And, you know, I always struggled with the higher power and God and all that, but one thing that really sticks out to me, you know, that proves to me that, you know, there's someone out there looking out for me is, I was walking down the road one day, and a bum, literally, the guy that lived in the dumpster, came up to me and told me, he's like, you know what, you need help, you need to go to rehab. And of course, me, I'm looking at him like, you live in a dumpster, you know? I shoot too, you live in a dumpster, I'm okay. And, but yeah, a couple days after thinking about it, you know, one day I looked in the mirror, I saw exactly like he saw. You know, it was a sad, broken man with a broken soul. And at that point, you know, I made a decision. You know, I started, you know, I'm going to take the easy way out, I'm going to shoot myself, or I'm going to change my life. And of course, I thought the first option was easier because I didn't want to give up my heroin. No one does. You know, like when you're on it, you care more about the drug than you do your own, more than yourself, more than your girlfriend, more than your family, more than the people around you. You know, like it literally consumes you till you don't care about anything. You don't even care about yourself. But, you know, I found God, you know, especially through the Agape House, you know, most of the guys here knew I've always struggled. You know, I cursed him up and down. At first I thought, you know, he gave up on me, he forsaken me, you know what I mean? He turned his back on me, but real I know I turned my back on him. And, you know, there's just hindsight. I overdosed 3 times. You know, I should have died 3 times because of this. So the first one, I was in a coma for about 6 days. And the second one was about 3 days. Third one was only about 44 hours. But the insanity of the drug, each time I got out, first thing I did, I got high. We do things, especially to the mothers and fathers, you know, who have a child that uses. We don't want to hurt you. You know, we do, but you know, we don't. That's not our intention, to hurt any of you. And honestly, what you guys feel, the pain that we inflict on you, we feel 1,000 times more deep down inside. It hurts us a lot more than you could ever imagine. But with that saying, you know, there is only one way out, and that's one you got to find God. You know, you got to be comfortable with yourself and connect with your higher power. You know? With that said, pass it on.
service at Advocacy in the 30s, 15s. My mother passed away in 2013 of lung cancer. At the time, I was still using the pills and everything like that. I came into a good bit of money, a little bit over 6 figures, and I just couldn't deal with that grief. And so I wanted something stronger. I ended up, moving overseas to county. I OD'd 3 times also using heroin, just like Kenny. It was one after another. First time I died, my heart stopped for 2 minutes. 16 days later, did it again. And then I finally made my way to rehab, and I got out of rehab, everything was good. And about 60 days clean, I did 8 bags, out again. So that was the 3rd time, and that was about, I want to say 3 months ago. But since then, I got into the Agape House. I started going to the NA meetings, doing outpatient drug and alcohol classes. You can't lose hope. You got to keep trying. And it's something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. But you have to keep your hope alive, and you have to believe in that person. And if you see somebody struggling, just reach out to them. It's very hard. I'm not a bad person. Not criminal, but I've done criminal acts because of the drug, because I needed $50 to get a bottle, I needed $100 to get 2, or whatever it is. But I'm just trying to get past it now. It's a day at a time, and I'm fortunate to be amongst the brotherhood guys that understand that, and I'm very grateful to God and Pastor Keith and the Agape House, and just want to say thank you for letting me talk tonight. I appreciate it.
He's a new kid on the block. He's only been with us a few weeks. He was in the program maybe about a week or so. On August 22nd, it was a Saturday. I had heard that there had been one overdose that morning. And then around the afternoon, there was a second overdose. I went to the funeral for the second overdose for Brett Heslin, 25-year-old gentleman. The mother of his child and his child were in our service on Sunday. But the third overdose hit home for me because I had been around it and I had heard about it, but I had never visualized it. But about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on that Saturday, August 22nd, I came in and I found Mason laying on the floor, unconscious. And he wasn't breathing. They called 911. It scared the heck out of me. It really, really did. It was a horrible experience. And we prayed together, we surrounded him, started praying for him, and he was not responsive. So the paramedics came in, they brought a portable breathing machine, and they hit him with Narcan several times. And I said, how you doing? They said, we're not doing too good. It doesn't look like he's going to make it. And so this is what I do as a director. I went into my prayer room in the other part of the house, and I got on my knees, and I lifted my hands to heaven, and I started to beg God that one is not going to die. We've had 350 men. One is not going to die today. He just came in, God. We need supernatural intervention. And I prayed for about 10 minutes, and I came back in, and Mason sat up, and he looked at me, and the first words out of his mouth were, Pastor, I am so sorry that I did this. And I knew the look in his eye was, am I going to get my termination papers? And I said, I am so happy right now that you are alive. I will see you in church tomorrow at 11 o'clock with your bells on. Just make sure you show up. And he said, Pastor, I'll be there. He went to the hospital. He was home in 3 hours. It was supernatural. As the paramedics left, I said, between you and God, we just witnessed a miracle. The paramedics turned it on me and said, we had nothing to do with this. God did it all. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here tonight. This is the top in this town. These are your next leaders that are going to lead the people at Pattersonville, Bel Air High School, and C. Milton Wright. Kenny's from C. Milton Wright, by the way. They're the next leaders in this town, and it's the people who have the experience. He doesn't believe it. See that? I speak it over them, and it comes to pass. That's how it works. Thanks again for having us tonight.
think I speak for everybody in here that you have the full support of everybody in the audience here to continue on your road to a great life. Great job. This evening we've heard from a lot of speakers, a lot of passionate individuals that have gotten up and braved the crowd and spoke about their personal experiences with heroin or how their agency helps find a cure to this disease that some call it. One of the things that was mentioned, and was mentioned quite a few times, is the signs. How do I know the signs? How do I know if my daughter's using heroin? How do I know if my coworker's using heroin? How do I know if my mom's using heroin? So we've got a few short PSAs that we're going to show you right here.
My parents never thought that their kid could have a heroin problem. They never checked my room for my stash, never questioned the kind of kids I was hanging out with. They never paid attention to the things they found in my laundry. They never bothered to check my text messages or what I looked at online. Never checked the car I drove around in. Never checked my book bag. And now my parents will never be able to forgive themselves.
Get help. Get involved before it's too late.
As a 23-year law enforcement veteran, I've seen a lot. Here's a few things to look for if you suspect your loved one is abusing heroin or prescription narcotics. Look in their rooms, in and under dresser drawers, under bedroom furniture, in their cell phone cases, inside the hollow lamp base. Look in their laundry, look in their trash, look in their shoes, up in the ceiling tiles, behind light switches and socket covers, in between furniture cushions. Look in their cars. For more information, go to the web address listed on your screen.
A lot of good information. Amber, I know we've met Christina once already this evening when we opened up the town hall, and I want to give her an opportunity to say a few words, because as you heard before, she's been in recovery for 3 years. Christina, tell us a little bit about how life is now.
I was studious and I wrote some things down. My name is Christina, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Christina.
I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and what that means is I have not taken a drink or a drug since June 8th of 2012. I am a Harford County native. I grew up in this town. I have 2 loving parents and an older brother that I have idolized since I was a little girl. I never wanted for anything, and all of my needs were met growing up. My parents worked middle-class jobs and provided for our family in the best way they knew how. Looking back, they did a pretty good damn job. I smoked my first cigarette when I was 11 years old. One of the neighborhood kids stole Winston 100s from his grandpa. They tasted horrible. I began drinking alcohol underage at 14, and by the age of 15, I was smoking marijuana in the woods in my neighborhood. I was using these substances with my friends. The camaraderie and the social aspect of partying is what kept me seeking this behavior even more. I took my first prescription pill when I was 16 years old. I cannot put into words how I felt using opiates for the first time. Some of you would probably could never understand. But I'm telling you that once that night occurred, the good old days of having fun were numbered. Shortly after, I was physically addicted to opiates. I could not sleep, I could not eat, I could not participate in life without the use of drugs. Every dream I ever had as a little girl vanished, and I was slowly paying the price of my addiction. I was accumulating a debt for my heroin habit, and towards the end, the price was too high to pay. My family was front row spectators for every hospital visit, psych ward, treatment facility, and halfway house I ever attended. And on a continuous basis, I let them down. At the very end, I was living in Baltimore City at the homeless shelter under the Fallsway Bridge. My family did not know if I was alive or dead. I had zero communication with anyone. But I was comfortable there because drugs eliminated any feelings I might have felt during these dark years. I numbed out any guilt, shame, remorse with large amounts of narcotics and alcohol. Over time, the drugs were not enough to feel at ease in the way I was living, and I sought help with local organizations here in Harford County. People helped me until I was able to help myself. I was given the gift of being in recovery, and throughout my journey, my life does not mirror anything I have had to endure in my past. I am an addict. I am living in recovery, and with being in recovery, I am so much more than those two statements. I'm a daughter today. I'm a best friend to my mom. I am a sister and a proud aunt of my 7-month-old niece. I am a true friend. I'm a student here at Harford Community College. I'm an employee for addiction organizations that help me get clean. I'm a woman today with morals and values again. And also, I'm an advocate for people still suffering from addiction. The drug epidemic in our county has killed my friends, people who I went to high school with, and many more children of parents that I work with in this town. I make sense of my story. I went through my addiction so someone else does not have to continue in theirs. I know as people continue to tell their story of addiction, it brings more awareness to this cause. This year, addiction has been standing in the light, and it no longer has to be hiding as a secret. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We're all proud of you. You look great. We've heard from a lot of people tonight, and we want to give the opportunity for everybody here in Darlington Hall, and those of you that are watching us at home on Periscope via Twitter, to ask questions to the panelists that we have assembled here tonight. So if you would, Amber will be over there with the mic. I'll be right here with the mic. So if you'd like to ask a question, if you just raise your hand. We'll get about 20 minutes left tonight, so we're going to try to get to as many people as we can with your questions for our panelists. And I'm sorry, State Attorney Joe Cassidy wanted to say a few words before we go to questions.
I've been doing this long. First of all, to all the recovering addicts that stood up, thank you for doing that. Sometimes, I've been doing this for about 40 years, my job. And I think it's important to come to a place like this because I need to know. I need to know that I haven't been beating my head against the wall for 40 years for nothing. Because when I started in 78, 79, big problem was heroin. And sometimes I wonder, did anybody make it? And I was glad to hear that you guys did. You helped sort of recharge my battery. That I understand that, yes, it's worth a fight. I go to Annapolis sometimes and I hear people ridiculing the war on drugs down there. I hear liberal legislators, people that think we ought to legalize everything. Why are we telling other people how to live their lives? And I think it is worth fighting the war on drugs. It's worth fighting the war on crime. You just don't walk away from a war like that. You have to keep doing it. You have to make it right. So hopefully, I think the message, not just good for people like me to hear this, but folks in Annapolis, and I know that there are a lot of delegates here tonight, but there are folks in Annapolis that need to hear this message, that we can't just say, well, the war on drugs is a failure, let's give up and move on to the next problem. The war on drugs is worth fighting, it's important to fight. Heroin is a problem, a lot of other drugs are problems. I'm still not convinced when I hear people say, well, it's just marijuana. I get the same emails, and I just got an email while I'm sitting here about the Sheriff's Department investigation of one of the latest overdoses. And time and again, they interview people that have overdosed, and they say, where did your drug problem start? And they start talking about being 13 and 14 and using marijuana. There's a lot of research on marijuana. It changes the adolescent brain. It does things to people. And I don't think that the kids here oh, well, we're just taking care of, we're just admitting that we were wrong about marijuana. They think we're admitting we were wrong about all drugs, okay? That we're a bunch of old stuffed shirts, fogies, adults that don't know any better. We said everything was bad, and we're changing our message. Well, we can't change the message. The message is those things are bad. They are addictive. They do drag you down into the sewer, and it doesn't change. So for the folks that brought a message of hope here tonight, thank you. Sometimes I think I needed to hear that.
Well-deserved round of applause. Joe Cassidy doesn't misspeak often, but he did misspeak and say one thing. He said he goes to Annapolis sometimes. I can attest to you from being down there quite a bit at legislative session. Joe Cassidy's in the committee hearings, giving them hell quite a bit, quite often. So you've got a great state's attorney in Joe Cassidy. Thank you, Joe. We're going to go ahead and take some questions here. And also, in the sheriff's presentation, he talked about solutions and new ideas. And if you don't have a question, but you've got a solution and you've got a new idea, something that we need to try, that the panelists need to know about, that the elected officials need to know about, we want to hear about that too. So if you can raise your hand if you have a question or a comment, we'll get out to you as quickly as possible.
This is maybe a solution that might work. I didn't have a body experience in the hospital. I looked down, I didn't see God, I didn't see a white light, I wasn't standing with a best friend that died. I saw myself laying in bed. And I think that if a lot of people, especially addicts, that go through the process of being being brought back to life, I think that, the sheriffs or the EMS or whatever videotape that whole procedure, I think that might be a little bit impactful. Personally.
Great solution.
I don't know, we're on our way to body cameras for an entirely different reason, and I think that's a much better reason. I would rather have some out there for that purpose rather than what's being perceived as the police, and I can guarantee that's a whole different discussion. It's not a problem to have here in Harford County. If I like it, then we'll take it back and talk amongst the whole group. Thank you.
Amber.
I just have a quick question. My sisters and I, we saw the play, The Addicts. Is that what it is? Addicted, right. Okay, we've seen it twice, and we just don't understand why the schools cannot present that to at least high school and junior high. It was very powerful, and it's just something I truly believe these kids need to see.
Well, it's certainly something we'll look into. That has to be vetted through certain committees for appropriateness. But I will say to you that we do push the limit on making sure that children are appropriately exposed to realism. And in fact, there was a fabulous rendition of Addiction that was written by one of our school psychologists and performed in the North Harford area. So, well, then that's it. I'm sorry, I thought you were referring to another. That was opened up, and we welcomed it, and we had people there after the play so that they could talk with parents and talk with children about it. So we do look for as much realism as we can that is appropriate. And I might add, and I really have to give kudos, I kind of have a Joe Ryan of my own, and Ginny Poplick, who's the supervisor of health education. And I think it's really important that everyone in this room knows how ardently the health department and the drug education department work with our kids. They are in and out of our schools all the time, talking with our kids at the elementary level, in the middle school level, and at the high school level. So anything that we can do, and if you come up with something else that you think would be helpful, we are more than happy to take a look at it and vet it. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent.
I have a statement and then a question. I hadn't planned to speak, but as I was sitting here listening to the stories and the information, I was thinking about elementary age children in Harford County and how the fact that cigarette smoking is so bad for you. By the time you're in 5th grade, they are appalled by people smoking cigarettes. They're appalled by alcohol by 5th grade. God forbid we have a beer with a piece of pizza on our Friday night. Is that too much to drink, Mom? Because they told us at school that you wasn't. So that is in their heads. My middle school student 2 years ago learned about different drugs. Came home, he asked me a couple questions. I have no problem answering them. How do I know if I see it? What do I do? Well, certain things, etc. We talked about some details. One funny detail was, well, if somebody's smoking pot, how do I know? I said, trust me, you'll know. It's something you've ever smelled before. You'll get it when you smell it. You know where she smelled it for the first time? Freshman year in the hallway at school. Why aren't they learning about those things when it's more impactful? Again, they're appalled by cigarettes by 5th grade, they're appalled by beer by 5th grade, but frankly, the demeanor changes very much when they get to high school. That is, it's not as impactful because now it becomes a social issue. You're a little uncool now if you talk about it. Get it to them when they're still appalled by it. As appalled as I was to find out the first time my daughter smelled marijuana was in the hallway in homeroom at school.
Thank you.
I mean, you're right. We drilled down to the middle school students. Last year in my office, I have 3 individuals. We partner with our health teachers that do a great job. So we're in those 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, and we're talking about marijuana the same as our health teachers talk about cigarettes and alcohol. And we're educating them at a younger age. So when they're in high school, they're making the right healthy choices. So we have drilled down. We prepared a report to the county executive, and we were in front of the middle school students probably about 40% more than the high school students in 9th grade health. So we are making a concerted effort to drill down to those middle school kids.
Thank you, Joe. And I know Emma was mentioned tonight that the middle school cluster forums that you have coming up here at the end of the month.
Yes, thanks, Eric. We have the displays out there, the superintendent, the county executive. They reviewed the data. We need to get middle school parents on board. High school is too late. So the superintendent has opened up her schools, has opened up her staff. We're starting September the 30th. We're at Patterson Mill. It'll be on our Facebook page, but we have plenty of flyers out there. It's on a lot of the Harford County Public Schools websites. We'll be pushing that. We're meeting with all the PTA presidents. Like 2 weeks, I have it on my schedule. But to get the PTAs, the importance of getting middle school parents involved, to learn about addiction, to learn about, we don't want you smoking marijuana at 13 because you're going to be shooting heroin at 18. We need to address addiction at those early middle school ages.
I would urge everyone to get on the school website and on the individual school websites. We have our sessions begin on September 30th and run all the way through the 5th. We've chosen a variety of nights to make it convenient for people. Starts at about 6:30. And it's being held at Patterson Mill, Falston, Aberdeen, North Harford, Edgewood, and also at Southampton Middle School. And I would urge parents to get out there because this is, and I'm going to go back to the metaphor of a war. One general does not win a war. We have to all be in this thing together and we all have to be working together. And I think that if any of the little clips resonated with me, the one that resonated with me was a little girl who said, please check my car and under my bed and in the drawer, and we have to do this together. And when we see something, you know, I frequently say, when it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. and start taking care of it. And I don't know what other way to put that, but as directly as that.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Amber in the corner.
I also, Eric,
Sorry about that. Kind of
one thing Joe and I try to stress too, and I love our teachers and I love the school board, but we also have to stress to parents that nothing substitutes mom and dad talking to their children. Not a teacher, not a government program. Believe me, nothing is going to replace mom and dad sitting down and talking to their children. And it can be as simple as that. And we can't just say the teachers will do it. Mom and dad, we have to stress that being a parent, you've got to take ownership and do it also.
Amber, one in the corner there.
Good evening. My name is Laura Pangratz, and I would like to thank all of you for showing a unified front. I am married to a retired law enforcement officer, I'm a retired preschool director, and I'm a current PTA president of a local high school. These presentations, and I have worked with Mr. Ryan many times over the last several years, where we watch his presentations, we hear from parents who have either lost a child or have a child that has been an addict. My concerns or my frustrations are, and you've kind of touched on them, is getting the parents to be involved. I am only one person, and when I'm begging my parents at my school to please come out and listen to a 1-hour presentation, it doesn't matter if there's an incentive to help our safe option post-prom party with some financial rewards if we get X amount of parents to come. We've done that program and not received any money because we didn't make the quota. But to me, that was still 30 parents who heard that message. But how do we take responsibility as our parents of these children, or grandparents, or aunts and uncles, neighbors of these kids that are still in school, and say, if you hear that we're putting on one of those presentations, come and go to it. I know at the high school level, most of the schools have had that presentation for the students during the day, but then most of the parents don't want to come back in the evening so that they can hear it. Oh, we've either been that or done that, or maybe it's their first child in school and they don't even have a clue that we have these kind of issues. But how do we entice them? How do we get them there? We need to help each other get them there. And I am very glad to be part of, as a PTA president, helping to get this message out into the middle school group too. But again, it's trying to get the parents themselves to commit to 1 hour out of our very busy lives that we all have to come out there and help one another. I'm not directly involved, I don't have a family member, but I have gone through the training for the naloxone. I have been there to support families of former preschool students that have passed away when they were in their teens or committed suicide because of that pain that they had to self-medicate. So my responsibility is, if I know there's a person out there, let me share this information. So when you hear PTA people saying, we're having this presentation and we're begging for people to come, please come and please share the information so that it can get out there, so that we can all be a unified team in helping. We don't want to have the law enforcement officers arresting us. We don't want to have our state's attorney prosecuting us. You know what I mean? We need to be united together in this. So thank you very much.
I think we've heard a lot of that tonight, just walking around here. Parents get involved, parents get involved. So everybody's been spreading that same message. Now there's a gentleman up front I'm going to get to real quick here.
My name is Jan Williams. I'm in long-term recovery myself, 12-step programs. And Mike Adams and I sponsor a 12-step meeting at the detention center. And I would just like to encourage folks who are involved in all that to try and get more 12-step meetings in those programs. We met with the warden who graciously talked with us and is considering adding more meetings. I'm just suggesting that we need more 12-step meetings, NA and AA, in the detention center. Thank you.
Real quick, before we take another question, I wanted to give Captain Dunbar and the Miss Beth Jones from the Health Department, they haven't really had a chance to offer anything, and hearing everything, is there anything that you want to add that maybe we haven't covered?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I think this is awesome. I think this is a good chance for the community to be involved and help the professionals up here. As it's been stated over and over again, addiction does not discriminate. Old folks, young folks, black, white, professional, non-professional, it does not discriminate. And I think with the community getting involved with everybody, we have some hope.
My question, I've been working with the Harford County Sheriff's Department very hard because my brother died of the fentanyl-laced heroin. His heroin did not come from Harford County, it came from Baltimore County. And we know exactly who dealt it, we know exactly where it came from, the street, the house it came from. So my question is the Harford County Sheriff's Department working with other counties throughout Maryland, Baltimore City to find out, like, can we prevent it from coming into other counties or things like that? But it's sad because my brother and I grew up in Harford County, and I never thought I would have lost him to heroin. So that is my question.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought that up. And that's one of the things we do in the task force. All the men and women that work up here obviously do a very dangerous job every day. And a lot of the men and women that are working up there are currently working undercover. We do operations. We all have statewide jurisdictions. Several of our deputies have federal deputization to the DEA. So our motto is, and the message we send out to drug dealers, is that if you're bringing it into our county, we'll track you down anywhere. And that's Baltimore City, that's Baltimore County, and that's anywhere in the United States. We've gone as far as out to California to get them, and we spend a lot of time, our detectives, in Baltimore City, buying off the drug dealers down there. And it is dangerous, and we track them down. And Mr. Heslin, I think you're all familiar with Brett's passing. We aggressively pursued that dealer, and we apprehended him the other day down in Baltimore City.
Amber's mic over there, so go right ahead.
I'm Linda Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Addiction Connections Resource, started by 4 others. Because we recognize the problem. I have very mixed emotions tonight. I lost my own daughter 7 years ago. Because I'm happy to see everyone here. We've been banging our heads against the wall forever to get listened to. But unfortunately, the problem had to be this severe to be listened to and this much loss. So I'm very sad about that, but I'm so happy that we have people from the school and our great health department. And of course, Joe Bryan, who I know this is great school and I have all the dirt on. And, you know, and then we have a county executive who is listening to us. So like I said, I have very mixed emotions about this, and this is going to take a lot of everyone working together. And we're not going to solve this overnight. We're not going to wave a magic wand. There is not one answer. Education is a really big part of the answer, as we're saying, and parents talking and speaking. There also, I wanted to say there's going to be a vigil on September 12th at Shamrock Park for all those who have been lost. I think it's at 6 o'clock, Carol.
Yeah, I was going to get up, but I'll back right on you. You can arrive starting at 6 o'clock and have a big enough mouth to talk this long. Starting at 6 o'clock, bring your blankets, bring your chairs, Shamrock Park, which is Leeway and Hickory Avenue. And at 7 o'clock, the program's going to start. Don Mathis will be there to speak at 7:30, delivering a message of hope. And then we have a vigil that will take place. It's a candlelight vigil A photo presentation's been put together in memory of those that we've lost, because we don't want to forget, we don't want them to die in vain, and there is hope. So come stand with us. We want to recover out loud. We want to get it out of the shadows. Less stigma, more hope.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Tom Lantieri. I have been in recovery for 21 years. This past August. And a year ago this month, I buried my son from a heroin overdose. For 21 years, I've been in the front lines of this disease, working with addicts and alcoholics across the state of Maryland, primarily to keep myself sober. That's what I learned in a program. Intensive work with other people. I've been on the front lines and I've had some struggles, some things that I've learned along the way. One of the things I think is, as a parent, and now as a grandparent, but when my child's in middle school, you never think your child's going to do it. So paying attention to something like this is just seems senseless. You know, why would we're going to have a happy family? This stuff is never going to happen. That I'm a parent that said, you know, for 21 years, like, I changed my life around and I did everything I knew how to do. Best practices, following some of the best advice and some of the best teachers in the country, you know, to help keep my kids sober. And it didn't happen. We stayed in the fight, we did what we could do, but even knowing what to do sometimes just doesn't work. There needs to be the stigma. For so long it was us, the addict and the alcoholic, who had a stigma that people looked at. Now I believe the stigma has hit the families. You know, our neighbors. You know, we don't reach out as often to our neighbors because oftentimes we're so busy. And our neighbor's child might be struggling and we don't know it, as our child is struggling. So one of the things that I keep trying to push out there is these things are great where we all gather together, and oftentimes we don't get to see each other again, so we don't ever know what, you know, if these guys up here stay clean. You know, we don't know, but where we're at, I believe where God places us in our neighborhoods, it's a place to begin to have a conversation, to drop the stigma that it's just not me. I can't be embarrassed because I'm sober 21 years and my son died from drugs. Like, it's hitting everywhere. And I felt that myself. How could I ever stand up again and sponsor guys and lead coalitions and ask Joe and Linda for help constantly to help get another guy into treatment, to get another guy into a halfway house, to spend countless hours with families of parents that keep enabling. You know, they're going to get better, they're going to get better. I want them to live here. You know, like, I'm out there and it's hard. It's hard. That's just a statement I have. And a question I have, one of the things I'm having a very hard time with is I spent a lot of time individually with people that I get into treatment with Joe and Linda's help. We get them into a halfway house. And as I try to keep up with them. And then if relapse happens again, which is we're seeing statistics and it does, I'm having a hard time following up when these guys and ladies are going down these bad paths, that we need the courts to step in and all have already on probation to have some sort of intervention to really save their lives. You know, I know we can't arrest ourselves out of this. I totally understand that. But when I have a gentleman and a young lady, I've had 2 cases, I just had a text from a mother who just kidnapped her 25-year-old son in Baltimore City, and she has him at the Panera Bread. Can I come talk to him? This gentleman's been in treatment, been in a halfway house, employed with great money, and has relapsed. I employed him, and he's been stealing my pickup truck from our building for the last month without us even knowing it. He stole keys. So, the question is, how do I now get to his probation officer? Because he's already on probation with a court date, September 15th, to make things go quicker, to have, he's violated, the consequences are happening. You know, it's like, I feel like sometimes with pendulum swinging, we can't arrest our way out, so we're not going to arrest, or we're not gonna lock up. Like, how somebody that's in the middle of this, who do I even talk to?
Well, one of the things that
I'm always grateful for this kind of information because it does help for us to be able to go. A lot of times we end up relying on probation agents for information. I mean, I would love to have folks like you or somebody who has firsthand knowledge of this person come to the court system and appear at that hearing, contact State's Attorney's Office and let us know, look, come to the hearing, we'll call you as a witness and we'll let you talk to the judge and tell them what sort of information you have about what he's doing, if he's not participating in, if he's supposed to be in treatment, he's not participating in treatment, if he's supposed to be clean and sober, and he's not clean and sober, then fine, let's put that information up for the judge and argue that the judge needs to structure whatever response the court makes so that it does save their lives or gets them back into treatment. So, I mean, I'll meet you afterwards, give you a card, you can call me, we'll schedule you. But I mean, this is kind of the tough love part of things. Well, I know he's going to court and could go to jail, and I don't want to say anything that will get him in jail. And it's like, well, we got a choice between jail and hospital emergency room or the morgue. So pick one of the three, pick the least obnoxious of the three, and we'll deal with that, and then we'll work him out of jail. I mean, we can always come back out of jail, give him a long enough trip to jail to get him cleaned out, and then bring them back. I mean, I work with a lot of drug folks that are that do treatment that will say to me, look, they'll call me. I mean, I have treatment folks that have my direct email address. I'm working with this person, they're in jail. I can get them a bed in this facility. We want to release them directly from jail to the facility. Can we arrange that? And we can arrange that. We do. I mean, we set it up, bring them back for a hearing. Judge says okay, and I've had people pick them up right from the door of the detention center and drive them right to treatment. So if you guys want to work that out, I mean, we're here. Give me a call.
Thank you, Jim. I've got Amber, if we could, the last 10, 15 minutes we have, questions or comments and suggestions, if we can just keep them as brief as possible so we can get to as many folks as we can. Amber.
I want to thank the parents that have shared their stories with us, but I do have a question for you though. I am a very naive parent, and I know there are many others that are pretty naive too. How do you know that if you're around children all the time, how do you know that maybe perhaps that child may be using drugs if they're not high all the time, or are there certain behaviors that we should look for, like they eat more, they eat more, they sleep more? I mean, any kind of clue that we should look for.
Joe, do you want to start with that one? Maybe Lee or Beth can jump in? Or Beth, if you want to.
I mean, the telltale signs we're going to look for is, empty baggies that are in the room. Start off with beer caps. I mean, for those younger kids, 12, 13, 14. Cut up straws. Things that are out of the norm that you didn't put in that room. Why does your kid have a sandwich baggie and only have the corner of the baggie there? The little glass bottles that they sell dope on the street. The little gel bottles. Well, if you see that around, hey, there's an indication that drugs have been there. Back to the rolling paper, to the bottles. Let your kids know that you're searching their room. That's what we need parents to do, so the deputies aren't doing a search warrant. We want to interrupt the intimacy that kids have with drugs. And when parents step into that arena to search their property, their book bags, their dressers, the cars that they drive, they know that the parents are involved in this fight against to keep them healthy. And that's our main focus, is to keep our kids healthy.
Thanks, Joe. Beth, if you want to add to that.
Some of the signs of heroin withdrawal and or use are runny nose, itching, drowsiness, school grades falling, eyes drooping. I'm not sure if you're looking for signs that Joe gave or the actual signs within the person, but that's some of the things you can look for.
And we have literature out on the table, please help us out with that.
And as Joe said, there are 7 or 8 of our partners in this fight against heroin who set up tables. So when you leave this evening, please stop by, visit them. If you'd like to talk privately about an issue, there are folks there that can provide some assistance for you. Sir.
Hi, my name is Mark Kessler. I lost my son, Brett, as we mentioned here a couple times tonight, a couple of Mondays ago. First of all, I would just like to thank the police department. Every rock in my house with the confidence. There's a federal response, the follow-up, and the hospitals, they pick up the custody. Everybody's beautiful. They get treated practically like everybody else is up there with the son. And that just, I have another son that's good bad on this, and he seems to be doing okay now. I just, one question I had is, if you go to a place that you find this so-called Suboxone or something like that, why is it so hard to get? I mean, you have to pay people hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Is there anything, any program out there that you get it quicker, or how's that work?
Great question. I'm surprised that hasn't come up earlier tonight. So Bethany, we talked about our Vivitrol program that we have, Suboxone, if you want to get some.
Within the health department, we have the Vivitrol and the Suboxone program. The price of it varies per your insurance provider. So we're actually basically for except Medicaid, and private insurance at this point, but Medicaid will pay for it. If you go to a private provider, Allen Street's a regular doctor, there's 2 types. There's opiate, I mean, there's office-based treatment and there's treatment. So office-based is basically you can go in and pay a doctor $500 and get a script and leave and have your Suboxone for 30 days. The type of treatment we provide for Suboxone is you have to be in group and or counseling and get your Suboxone. But again, Medicaid pays for that.
Thank you, Matt. Amber.
A lot of my thunder has already been taken, so I'd just like to make a brief statement. I've been in the past couple of years visiting many churches just to see what they're all about. And as long as they study and worship the same 66 books of the Bible that I do, they're okay. And as I was looking at the praise and worship song, I go to a praise and worship service, and I'm looking around and I see all these 6 and 7-year-old kids dancing now and raising their hands when songs are sung. We need more of that. Parents have to get their children involved in a good Bible-based church. Let them go to Bible school. Let them say, instead of saying, hey dog, let them turn that around and say, hey God. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeanette, and I have my son here who's just about 16 years old. We came here today just because we heard about this through a friend, not because we heard about it in the schools. There was a lady from PTSA here who mentioned earlier about getting information on the parents and having parents participate. I just wanted to mention that the PTSA president of our local high school last year had the couple that had spoke earlier, which is a preacher and his wife, whose daughter had passed away. I wasn't able to go to that meeting, and nor was my son, but she sent out a email that she does to all of the people in the school, and she posted a video of that particular segment, or a segment that he had done that someone had recorded before. And that was very powerful for our community, because I know the parents got together that Friday from my neighborhood, and we were all talking about it. It's not necessarily the responsibility of the people who volunteer for the school, but I was wondering if there was a possibility that we could do stuff like that on Edline, because Edline is the resource that the parents use to get all kinds of information about the school, what clubs they have, you know, what is going on. There was also a September 30th meeting at Patterson Mill that was mentioned. I don't know anything about that. It could be on Edline. I'll go and look when I get home. But I just wanted to mention, and I'm sure that you've all thought about this, but Edline is a great resource, and if we could have videos for parents, you know, that would be great. And separately, I'd also like to thank the gentleman that stood up from Agape
and for the other parents that were here tonight, that we could witness real life stories to my son. He's currently not doing anything that I'm aware of, but, you know, he says to me he knows very little about drugs in general. He's in 10th grade, and he said as far as heroin is concerned, I asked him how much he's heard about it. He said this much. So, that's just what I was going to say.
With the PSAs we have on our Facebook page, Sheriff, you guys have it on your Facebook page. The ones that you saw tonight, we'll be loading them up tomorrow. But we have other PSAs that Captain Dunbar and I had produced. They're on our Facebook pages. So, and you're welcome what to do. Share with your friends and neighbors. Get the word out. Thank you. Amber.
My name is Paul, and I'm a member of St. Margaret's Substance Abuse Ministry. And the thing I wanted to bring up was all the people in here are very much interested, know that there's a problem, and are not in denial. But when we first tried to get something started at St. Margaret's, we couldn't get people to answer a survey. We couldn't get people to start coming to meetings. And when we tried to expand it to other churches, it was the same story. There's no problem in our church. There's nothing going on in our church. So if you all want to do something that you can pay it forward for what you're learning, stick to it. Get to those pastors. Get them interested. Don't let them tell you that there's nothing going on. And what Joe had said to us at one of our meetings, maybe when the priests and the pastors get tired of seeing the caskets coming down the aisles, they'll finally start something in their church.
We've heard a lot of good information tonight, a lot of educational information from the panel, a lot of great questions, a lot of great stories from the audience, solutions to the problem. Because it's 9 o'clock, we're going to have to wrap it up. So we're going to have the last question, but this doesn't stop with this last question here. All of these folks have emails, they have telephones. All of your elected officials, same thing, they're responsive. Reach out to them. Continue to tell the story.
Like many of you, never thought that my daughter would have a problem. She started using marijuana in 8th grade. And then in her 9th grade year of school, she left my home to live with her biological father, who was addicted. That became a crazy, crazy experience. He was giving her a couple $1,000s to run to Baltimore City to pick up drugs so that they could sell them together here in Harford County. My daughter was out with friends and was arrested because she had pills with her. She was then referred to the juvenile, DJJ, Juvenile Services. For her addiction, she was then referred to the Juvenile Drug Court Program in Harford County. They have a very close relationship with their counselor. They are accountable to Judge Carr twice a month. They have random drug screens. Through a combination of things, she was sent away for 9.5 months to an adolescent program. Excuse me, that was a gift, and it saved her life. I have a friend whose son is in the Juvenile Drug Court Program. She called me today and said that, for reasons unknown, the Juvenile Drug Court Program closed today with no explanation. I guess the messages that they get when they call in were that just to contact Juvenile Services. This is a critical program in the county. The main discussion tonight was to get kids younger, get them early, get them into care.
So I think give it to, I think.
I'll address that issue. Today we changed providers for our juvenile drug court treatment training. We actually upped our services to all those children that are in our adolescent program. we're now transferred out to the treatment providers. They have PhDs, and they can address their substance abuse problems along with their mental health issues.
Well, why weren't the families notified?
It just happened a few hours ago, and that's we're in the process of calling the
In
families.
planning, I think that it should have been done differently. It is a critical program, and
Everyone is being notified this evening. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank everybody for turning out tonight. I think when we planned this a few months back, we never expected to fill the room. Joe Ryan had always given me, I guess, kind of a goal to shoot for. He's never had a forum where the fire marshal has kicked people out. So, Joe, I think now we can say we've had a forum to fill the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for showing up tonight. I want to give Sheriff Taylor just a moment to close the forum out and thank everybody for attending this evening.
Just real quick, I'll just say, we've heard a lot tonight. As Eric said, we all have contact information, but the Hope Group is going to continue to meet. What I didn't cover kind of in my presentation real quick is the first few months that we've met, it's kind of been a learning experience. We brought into courts the state's attorney, the police department, the board of admin back to jail, the health department, the school system, and we kind of went and educated the Hope Group on everything that government is doing right now on the problem, so we can go from this point, from this town hall forward, and try to come up with some new concepts. And we've heard a lot of stories, we've heard a lot of personal anguish and heartbreak, we've heard some good ideas tonight. I want to grow the good idea part. I want to have less of the heartbreak and more of the good ideas on how we combat this. So please, I think Eric is the best point of contact through there. Maybe we can email address. I was looking over at Christy. I don't know if she's over there. She's. I know Sheriff at Harford Sheriff.org goes right to you, and we can funnel that right to the Hope Group.
Yes.
If we can't set up, and we'll put it on our Facebook page. If you haven't followed the Sheriff's Office on the Facebook page, I know people in my age, a lot of people don't have Facebook pages, so it is the best way to reach out to the public real quick. But we'll try to set up an email, maybe hope@harfordsheriff.org. I'll put that in the morning, see if we can pull that off. But if we can do that, we'll share it. Please let us know if you have an idea and you think, well, it's crazy, I wonder if they've ever tried it. Let us try it. We'll give it a whirl through the group, and if it works out, we'll try it out there. Thank you very much for coming.
In the interim, they can just message us through our Facebook page, and we'll be sure to get all that information over to Eric, and then we'll set the website up. So if you have something tonight, feel free to just go home, message us on our Facebook page, and we'll get it to where it needs to go.
And again, Harford County, who was it that said they live here and they're going to move away from here? It's a great place. It is a great place. And you have a great team up here at the front table who are working hard. And Mr. Cashley, you see how much passion there is for what's going on. And I said, we're not going to arrest our way out of this. It doesn't mean we're not going to participate in the process and we're not going to continue to still do our job. Arrest is part of the solution. We have to look for other things. And yeah, I agree. It's a war of sorts, but it's a war we have to fight to win. And some of that goes bigger than us protecting, closing down the borders. We know this is coming from South America, the majority of the heroin we're seeing. But we will do what we can in our little pocket first, and we'll push those suggestions up to the federal level and see what kind of traction we can get. So thank you again for coming.
Thanks again for your